Riba has taken control of the economy around the world today, and mankind has now entered into a new economic slavery. The Prophet ﷺ said many more things about Dajjal, which we could not understand. No. For 1400 years, no one could understand it. He said, for example, that Dajjal will ride on a donkey. The donkey will travel as fast as the clouds. The donkey will have his ears stretched out wide. Today, it's very easy to recognize that donkey. But for 1300 years, could anyone think about the modern aircraft? Impossible. So books written about Dajjal in the past could never understand the subject fully. Never. Dajjal will enter into the ocean and the water will reach him up to his knee. He will step into the ocean, the water will reach him up to his knee. Who could understand that for 1300 years? No one. Only a very tall man. Today, we can understand. Modern technology allows us to go down into the bottom of the ocean and pick up things, as though the water is reaching us to our knee. Dajjal will be jumping about between the heavens and the earth. Can you imagine a scholar of Islam 1,000 years ago trying to understand that? Today is easy. Today is easy. It's your space exploration and your shuttle going up and down. And so there are aspects of this subject of Dajjal which could not be understood. For 1300 years of our history, this book has come out at just that time where it is now possible for us to understand a subject which could not be understood before. When Dajjal is released into the earth, then the implications for mankind will be perilous. But for the Jews in particular, it will be most ominous. The Prophet ﷺ now begins to speak about Dajjal, and this is after the change in Qibla. He now suspects a Jewish boy to be Dajjal in Medina. The boy's name is Ibn Sayyad. So he says to Umar radiallahu ta'ala, you come with me. And they went, and he questioned the boy. But the boy was rather impertinent in his replies. And Umar then got angry. You know, Umar, if there were to have been a prophet after me, it would have been him. He got angry. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission, I'll cut off his head." If he were alive today, they would say he's a terrorist. Yeah. Those who want to teach us Islam, establishment Islam, they will say, this is the wrong Islam. Let us teach you the right Islam. Umar, sit down. Let us teach you the right Islam. Yeah. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission, I'll cut off his head." The Prophet replied and said, "No, Umar. If he is Dajjal, you cannot kill him." Why? Because only the true Messiah, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, can kill the false Messiah. If he is Dajjal, you cannot kill him. And if he is not Dajjal, it would be sinful to kill him. My teacher of blessed memory, Maulana Fadl Rahman Ansari rahimahullah, used to say in the Urdu language, and I'm sure you have a Bahasa expression for it. He said, for the one who is truly smart, a sign is sufficient. He'll understand. Aqlmand ke liye ishara kafi hai. This is what the Prophet now does. If he is Dajjal, you can't kill him. But if he's not Dajjal, it will be sinful to kill him. There's a sign in this. There's a sign in this. What is the sign? That the possibility exists that he can be Dajjal. But that possibility can only exist if Dajjal has been released. And so this event is meant to convey to us the information, but in such a way that they would not understand it, the Jews. The Dajjal has been released. Gog and Magog has been released. Dajjal has been released. Dabbatul Ard is still to come, and the sun must still rise from the west. But these two must come together. He said, if this one comes first, the other one will come shortly after. These two. Dabbatul Ard, the sun rising from the west. And so Qiyamah commenced in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. But if Dajjal is released, where is he? If he's on earth, where is he? The Prophet said ﷺ, when Dajjal is released, he'll live on earth for 40 days, one day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week, and the rest of his days like your days. I believe, and Allah knows best, that I am perhaps the first to have interpreted that hadith. Here it is on the cover of this book. Praise is due to Allah. When his day is like our day, he'll be in our dimension of time. Therefore, we can see him. He'll be a young man, he'll be a Jew, he'll have curly hair, he'll be powerfully built, but I'm saying nothing about his eyes. Where would he be? In Jerusalem, ruling the world from Jerusalem. But where would he be when he's released on earth in a day like a year, and then a day like a month, and then a day like a week? Where would he be? Of course, not in our dimension of time, so we can't see him. There is a hadith in Sahih Muslim we call the hadith of Tamim Udari, which gives us the answer. We don't have the time to give you that hadith in detail, but you go into the book and you find it. The hadith informs us that when Dajjal is released on earth, he's going to be on an island, number one. Number two, the island will be about 1 month's journey by sea from the Arab world. Number three, the island will be an island that conceals its true identity. Number four, the island will be an island that specializes in spying and espionage. Which island is it? This is my answer. You don't have to agree with me. But if you say I'm wrong, you must tell me what is the right answer before you can leave. In October of 1917, it is the island of Britain which issues the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration. That it is intention of His Majesty's government, let's make it His Majesty's godless government, to work for the establishment of a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. Strange thing, isn't it? Number two, in December of 1917, the British Army defeats the Turkish Army, liberates the Holy Land for the Jews. Number three, it is the island of Britain which rules over the Holy Land from 1917 to 1948 on a mandate conferred by the League of Nations. And during that time, the Jews are allowed to return. We eventually reclaim the land. Something that the Ottoman Islamic Empire never allowed. Number four, it is the island of Britain which presides over the birth of the Jewish state of Israel in 1948. I've only given you four. There are more. There is more evidence than this. But you might want to go and do some research now. You might want to go back and study British history one more time, as I am doing now. Go back and re-study all that I studied before. Re-study it now. I come to the conclusion that the island is Britain. That when Dajjal is released on an earth in a day which is like a year and commences his mission to impersonate the Messiah, it is from Britain that he launches his attack. And I notice that he who wants to rule the world and deliver to the Jews rule over the world causes Britain to become ruling state in the world. I have so much more I'd like to talk about Britain, but time is against me. One day Britain is no longer the ruling state in the world. Britain is replaced by the United States of America. I want to advise those of you who are serious as thinkers to do what I'm doing now. To examine minutely and carefully the process of change through which the United States of America replaced Britain as the ruling state in the world. How long did it last? And what was the process of change? This is your homework. When the United States became the ruling state in the world, then the United States also maintains that mysterious, mystifying, puzzling, baffling, enigmatic relationship with Israel that Britain had. You can't explain the American relationship with Israel with any of the normal tools of political analysis. No. Only the Quran and a man named Muhammad can explain it. So don't ask your foreign minister. Don't ask the diplomats, because they can't answer it. The United States is the first country in the world to recognize Israel. It was born. The United States provides massive financial assistance to Israel, massive economic aid to Israel, massive military aid to Israel, massive transfer of military technology from the front door and from the back door. Israel becomes a powerful state. Israel becomes a nuclear state, armed with nuclear weapons to match Europe. Israel becomes a thermonuclear state. Israel today has the capacity to destroy every European capital. And Israel has won. We're not going down without taking the world down with us. We have the power to take the world down with us. That's how powerful Israel is. And so my answer is that when Dajjal is in a day which is like a month, it is the United States of America which is its headquarters. I want to suggest to you that we are now located in that moment in time when the state of Israel is about to replace the United States of America as the ruling state in the world. And Dajjal will now enter into a day which is like a week. We are now passing through the greatest drama that mankind has ever experienced in history. All that I have done is to give you the framework from the Quran, which you can now apply to try to understand what is happening in the world. Tomorrow, we will be in the grave. Tomorrow you must use this to understand and to analyze what is happening in the world using the framework of the Quran. Now, the war on Iraq is meant to be on behalf of the Jewish state of Israel. Why is the war being waged now? Why not before? Because, as I said, we are now entering into the period when a day will be like a week, a day like a month will end. But I noticed that this war was planned long ago. And I noticed that they made the attempt long ago. I could not help noticing because I was resident in New York City. September the 11th was not the first time that they attempted to blow up and bring down the World Trade Center. Twin Towers. I was there in New York when the first attempt was made. I believe it must have been January 1992. It was winter time. And guess what? There was a Republican administration. A Republican administration. It was Bush Sr. And guess what? There was a Jew who was identified to be part of the planning committee. And then he disappeared. And guess what? There were a number of Arabs who were duped into this. They didn't know what they were doing. And the rider van was packed with explosives and taken into the basement of the World Trade Center and then exploded. But the buildings did not collapse. 6 floors were damaged, but the building did not collapse. It was clear as daylight that the Arabs were not themselves the architects of this effort, that they were duped. Because the fella who rented the van, the Arab boy who rented the van which was used in the attack, he had to give a deposit of $400. The day after the attack on the World Trade Center, this fellow went back to the office to collect his $400. Not knowing that the van which he rented was the van which was used in the attack. And so the same forces who attacked America on September the 11th, but this time they did a better job, because they rigged the buildings with explosives all the way up. They rigged the buildings with explosives, you see? So that when the explosives were detonated, the building could collapse nicely. The way you do a perfect demolition job, all the way coming down. This time they did a better job. The last time they failed. But in between the first effort and the second effort, there was a democratic government. Bill Clinton. It was not a Republican Bush government. And so the war on Iraq had to be put on hold. It had to be put on hold while Clinton was in office. And then when Clinton won re-election, they said, oh my gosh, we got to stand up for another 4 years to this man. How can we bring it down? How can we bring it down? And then they sent a girl named Monica. A Jewish girl named Monica. This was not simple hanky-panky. No. This was an effort to bring down the government so that it could be replaced with another which could serve the interests of those who wanted to take America to war on behalf of the Jewish state of Israel. They even took Clinton to be impeached. Only the second time in U.S. history that an effort was made to impeach a president. But Clinton was a gritty old horse from Arkansas, and Clinton survived. And so they had to wait. And then they bit their nails in fury when Al Gore polled more votes than Bush in the election. And only with the help of their friends in the Supreme Court, with a lot of Jews in the Supreme Court, they were able to hand victory to George Bush. They needed this man in the White House before they could pull off September the 11th. Like they needed his father before they could attempt to bomb the World Trade Center in 1992. Once they have this man in the White House, they can now attack Afghanistan. And they can now attack Iraq. And as your Prime Minister correctly said, they have other agendas after Iraq. He's correct on that. This war was made possible because there is a clique who now have control of the White House. In order to gain complete control over Mr. Bush, they had to have September the 11th. Once the World Trade Centers collapsed, Bush was now putty in their hands. will the present window of opportunity last for them? Because they're saying after Iraq, we're going after Syria, we're going after Iran, we're going after Libya, we're going after all these things. How long will this window of opportunity last? Answer, so long as Bush is president. And so I want to say to you, it is not America which is waging war on Iraq. It is an America which has been hijacked. Many American people, without even knowing that the American government has been hijacked, many American people are protesting against the war. An American woman did what none of us have done. An American woman did what none of us have done so far. She left her home in Olympia, on the west coast of the United States. And she went to Palestine 2 weeks ago to protest with her mom, with her body, what is happening in the Holy Land. And she stood up before a house which was to be demolished, thinking that because she is a white American woman, Israel would not dare to do with her what Israel has been doing with the Palestinians. She attempted to stop the tank. The tank never stopped. The tank not only rolled over her, but came back and rolled back and rolled back. So she was killed. And so this is not an American war on Iraq. This is a war by a government of America which has been hijacked. A Bush Republican regime. The next elections are supposed to be in November of 2004, which is about 17, 18 months away. So they have a window of opportunity lasting another 16 months or so to do as much as they can do before the next election takes place. If Bush loses the election and the Democrats win, then the window of opportunity will be closed and they'll have to wait again. But if Bush wins the election and is re-elected, then the window of opportunity will remain open. This is what we may not be alive. You must use this information for your analysis. Now then, why do they want the war on Iraq? And why do they want the war on other countries after Iraq? Number one, now is our microanalysis. I've taken 1 hour and 20 minutes. Number one, to make the region safe for Israel. Number two, to pave the way for Israel's big war of territorial expansion. Number three, to take physical control of the oil so that that physical control could be passed on to Israel. Number four, to take control of water and then pass on that control of water, the rivers of Iraq, to Israel. Number five, to facilitate the consolidation of Shia Islam, that is Shia Iran and a Shia government in Iraq, whether Iraq is one state or many states, and Shia Lebanon coming together in one greater Shia world. And then to foment rivalry and conflict between Sunni Islam and Shia Islam. Divide and rule. Number five, to pave the way for the fall of the United States of America as the ruling state of the world. And there are many American political commentators who are now predicting this. Number six, number one, to make the region safe for Israel. Number two, to pave the way for Israel's big war of territorial expansion. Number three, to allow control of oil to pass to Israel. Number 4, to allow control of water to pass to Israel. Number 5, to facilitate, I wrote number 5 twice. Yeah, to facilitate the consolidation of Shia Islam and then to foment Shia-Sunni conflict. Number 6, to pave the way for the fall of the United States of America as the ruling state in the world. Number 7, to allow Israel to replace the United States as the ruling state in the world and to force the submission of Europe, of Japan, of the Muslim world, of Malaysia, and the rest of the world to the rule of Israel. And so finally, to allow Dajjal to complete his mission of impersonating the Messiah. Dajjal, the false Messiah, impersonating Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the true Messiah. These are the basic objectives of the war at the level of microanalysis. When the big war takes place, all of this is to prepare for the big war, Israel's big war. It will witness dramatic territorial expansion of the state. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying this is what they want to do. When it does happen, then the analysis would be correct. So we don't have to sit down with our arms folded and say there's nothing we can do. Don't come with that question at the end of the lecture. I'm saying this is what they want to do. And this is what they do, then I'm correct. It's good to know what they want to do. That is not useless information. Israel's big war of territorial expansion, why? Why does Dajjal have to do that? Because to convince the Jews, he has to deliver a holy land as defined territorially in the Torah. The holy land as defined territorially in the Torah extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. When you go to the Quran and you know how to go to the Quran, then you see that the Quran proves that that is false in the Torah. But when the state of Israel hears about the river of Egypt, they're not thinking so much about the Nile. They're more thinking about Israeli military control over the Suez Canal. That's the immediate river of Egypt. And when Israel hears about the river Euphrates, Israel is thinking about control over the oil. And so the big war will have these as its immediate objectives: control over the oil, and control over the Suez Canal, and control of their territory in between. When they have control of that territory, then perhaps the Palestinians will be exported out of the Holy Land, out of the present state of Palestine. I may be wrong. They may do it even before that. They may do it now. But the Palestinians are going to be out. When that big war takes place, and Israel takes control of the oil and the Suez Canal, then you have Europe like this. Because the Suez Canal is a strategic link for business and for trade. And Europe cannot do without the oil. Japan cannot do without the oil. Israel now controls the oil. Can Europe force Israel to withdraw? No. Because the United States and Britain will be standing behind Israel. Why? Why this mysterious link between the United States and Britain and Israel? Only the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad can explain it. Nothing else. You know why Australia is in it? Because Australia's ruling class are British. That's why. Why is New Zealand not in it? Because the ruling class in New Zealand are Scottish and Irish, and they don't like the British. The United States and Britain stands firmly behind Israel. Nelson Mandela said, well, I was in Cape Town when Nelson Mandela delivered that lecture. He said that the Prime Minister of Britain is no longer the Prime Minister of Britain, he's now the Foreign Minister of the United States. You remember? I said he could have gone on to say something more. That Tony Blair and George Bush have now become the shoeshine boys of the State of Israel. They stand behind Israel. And therefore neither Europe, nor Europe plus Japan, nor Europe plus Japan plus the rest of the world plus your non-aligned movement can force Israel to withdraw. They may go to the United Nations, if the United Nations is still there, to try to have what is known as the Uniting for Peace resolution as they had in 1956. And if the United Nations General Assembly passes that Uniting for Peace resolution, all that the United States has to do is to withdraw from the UN. And when the United States withdraws from the UN will have to pack its suitcases and leave New York. That is the end of the United Nations. Israel now becomes the ruling state in the world when that big war takes place. The war on Iraq is meant to facilitate the emergence of Israel as the ruling state in the world. This war, this big war, however, cannot be waged by Israel to become the ruling state and yet appear to be a war of naked aggression. No. Well then, how can Israel wage a big war and yet not appear to be waging a war of naked aggression? The answer is the United States has to attack Afghanistan and then attack brutally Afghanistan and then attack Iraq brutally, with large numbers of people being killed, horrendous suffering. But it must take place when Israel has already done her dirty work in the Holy Land on the Palestinians, brutalizing them, massacre after massacre. And the Palestinians are calling unto the heavens for help. And all of these images of houses being demolished, people being killed, and children being killed, and all of these images must reach the Arab television screens. So the Arabs can be driven to frenzy and to rage, boiling point. Do you think Saudi television will carry it? Or Egyptian television? Or Jordanian television? No, they'll be too scared. So now the Israeli Mossad and the CIA will have to create a new television station. Of course, it must be an Arab television station. And that television station must do the work of conveying all of these images to all the Arabs. So they're driven to rage. Of course, this television station must also have a direct line to Osama bin Laden. Direct. Direct line to Osama bin Laden. So when I see now a new interview from Osama, I read it now because I know it was written by the Israeli Mossad. That has already been accomplished. The Arab masses have today reached the level of rage, boiling rage. Then the attack on Iraq takes place. And it must be a horrendous attack. There must be a large number of deaths. There must be a claim that Saddam is using chemical and biological weapons. You know, the United States knows exactly what biological weapons he has. Yeah. And the United States knows exactly how much, because the United States gave them to him. These massive and violent demonstrations are needed to bring down governments, particularly pro-American governments. And they must then be replaced by anti-American and anti-Israeli and pro-Islamic governments. And only then can CNN and company and all the media and all the newspapers, New York Times and London Times and Times of India and Straits Times and New Straits Times, now give the picture of Israel to be a state which is in mortal danger. The wall of Islam is rising up to slaughter the Jews. When that happens, then public opinion will be convinced that Israel is only trying to defend itself. Then Israel can wage a big war without appearing to be a war of naked aggression. To bring our lecture to a close, we're already 5 minutes over time. When Israel becomes a ruling state in the world, then she'll rule the world for a day which is like a week. How long would that be? Well, calculate. That was the time of greatest oppression for Muslims. Israel cannot be the ruling state in the world and you have the United Nations in New York. So something has to replace the United Nations. This is your homework. Political analysis. Israel cannot be the ruling state in the world and the World Bank and the IMF are in Washington. No. Something has to replace them. Israel cannot be the ruling state in the world and the US dollar is the international currency. No. The United States has to be brought down. Part of the process of bringing down the United States will be attack on the US dollar. It'll collapse. If you invite me to come again and lecture, no, we'll have this inshallah on the seminar. In the seminar when we deal in session 3 with the Sunnah, riba in the Sunnah, prohibition of riba in Sunnah, we'll deal with money inshallah. When the US dollar collapses, it brings down the entire world of paper money with it. Maybe then Mufti might wake up and declare paper money to be haram, but I'm not sure. When paper money disappears, the new money will be invisible money. You can't see it. Intangible money, you can't touch it. It's already started, hasn't it? Yeah. Electronic money. This will be the total, the complete, the climax of the abandonment of the Quran and the abandonment of the Sunnah by people who don't even recognize what they're doing. New electronic money. Electronic impulses in machines in banks. Whoever controls the keyboard to the computer to the banking system controls money. They can make any amount of money they want. No one can stop them. And they can wipe out any amount of money they want. No one can stop them. Israel becomes the ruling state in the world with financial control over the world, with economic control of the world, with political control of the world, with the help of Britain and the United States. At the end of a day, which is like a week, then Dajjal himself will appear. A young man powerfully built, etc. At that time, the Imam emerges. Imam al-Mahdi cannot emerge until Dajjal has completed his mission. The one question you must never make the mistake of asking me is, Sheikh, is the Imam born as yet? Don't do that, please. Imam al-Mahdi cannot emerge until Dajjal has completed his mission. Then the Imam will emerge. Then Dajjal attacks the Imam. And when the Imam is cornered, then the son of Mary comes down. Then the true Messiah kills the false Messiah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys Gog and Magog. The world order crumbles. I believe that the modern world of technology will then also crumble. And battles will now be conventional battles. Then said the Prophet ﷺ, when you see the black flags coming from the direction of Khorasan, go and join an army. Even if you have to walk over ice, even if you have to crawl over ice. Because no one can stop that army until it reaches Jerusalem. A Muslim army will now destroy the state of Israel and liberate the Holy Land. And the Islamic State will now replace it. And that Islamic State will be the ruling state in the world. No one can stop it. Not even Sharon. And the true Messiah will now rule the world from Jerusalem. With a rule which will be eternal. In the sense that there's nothing to replace it. But what do we do now? How do we respond to this drama? The answer is you don't sit down doing nothing. The answer is that no matter what this government or that government may say, jihad is already in force. If you can't see that, you're seeing with only one eye. Jihad is already in force in the Holy Land. No one can stop this jihad. No one. Until the Holy Land is liberated. When jihad is in force, then there is an obligation of the believer on the believer to participate. We participate in jihad with our tongue. No, Sheikh, if I do that, I'm going to lose my job. They're going to say I'm a terrorist. They're going to say I'm a fundamentalist. Well, there are those who will stand up and follow in the footsteps of the prophets of Allah. And the others will put their tail between their legs and run for cover. It is for us to choose. You wage jihad with your pen. You wage jihad with your wealth. But you must also wage jihad with your sons. I told them in South Africa in the months of January and February when I was there that if a Jew can do it, why can't you? If he can send his son to Israel to join the Israeli Defense Force, to get military training and to then participate, fighting for 2 years, killing Muslims. And then after 2 years he goes back to Cape Town and rejoins the Cape Town University to continue his studies. But he went quietly and he came back quietly. No announcements, no beating of the drums, no organization. If they can do it, why can't we? This is what the Muslims of this country and this city must now do. If you attempt to do it publicly, you'll be stopped. If you attempt to form an organization, it will be destroyed. But if the organization is out there, when you reach out there on the outskirts of the Holy Land, or the land of Khorasan, there you link up. There you do your military training. And there you get battlefield experience. If Allah allows you to come back home and you are arrested, woe unto that government which arrests a son who went to seek to respond to the oppression in the Holy Land. Why woe unto that government? Because the oppression is constantly increasing. And public opinion will turn dramatically against such a government. They might try to 1 or 2 or 3, they might arrest, but then they'll stop. Because public opinion will be against them. And so you go quietly, and you come back quietly. And if this is being done all around the world of Islam, you see the movement like ants moving from all directions to the Holy Land and to Khorasan. Khorasan is that territory on the east of the river Euphrates, extending all the way to northwest of Pakistan, and north of Afghanistan all the way north. This, brothers and sisters, is how we should respond to the war in Iraq. It's not by going to fight the United States. You lose. But by going to fight the Jews in the Holy Land. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless all those who now return to the Book of Allah. Seriously, to study the Book of Allah, that the Book of Allah may explain to them the world in which we live today, and that the Book of Allah may guide them how to respond to it appropriately. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا رب.